Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. Today, update number 3 on my journey through Lost Epoch. The game has been out now since 3 days, and the first 2 days were rough, and the third day was not too different. I mean, slightly different, because it feels like that all these kind of server issues are only happening in the campaign, because once I reached the end game, once I reached the monolith of time and started to farm my echoes, there were absolutely no problems anymore. No excessive loading screens, no disconnects, no crashes. A complete smooth experience as I remember it to be in the beta version when I played it. And yeah, today I want to go over the last kind of bits of the campaign and then where we are right now. Currently level 70 on my Druid. And oh boy, it has been a journey. We basically yesterday when we tackled on the rest of the campaign as good as we could, obviously with some downsides with, again, excessive loading screens, not being able to log into the game and so on and so forth. We still managed at some point, if you just keep on logging in, at some point you get in and then you can play. It is rough, but it is getting better, so to say the least. And yeah, so the goal was, if you remember from yesterday's video, we were playing the Swarm Blade with the hives, with this tornado building kind of build. And I said, once we hit level 50, we're gonna convert the build into the the build that I actually want to play, which is an Unending Storm, Rampage, Druid, Werebear, Autobomber. And we did that, and obviously in the start it was rough, because the way it works in Lost Epoch, once you reset your points, or at least despecialize certain skills and put in new ones, you don't get back to the full level of that skill. It gets resetted, but you have some kind of base level. That means if I happen to have Werebear on level 20 and I despecialize it, and then I selected again as being one of my one of the 5 main skills with the tree, then it's going back to level 10 or something. You have a couple of points to get going, but not everything, but you farm them up quite fast again. I think the reason for that is they want to prevent people from going full out on clear speed for echoes, and once they see a boss, they just quickly respec for full single target, and once they kill the boss, they go back to their farming strategy or farming build. I think that's probably the main reason why this is a thing. Has pros and cons. I'm personally not the biggest fan of it, but it is what it is. Good. So how does this ending or unending storm kind of thing works? So basically, if we swap in-game real quick. So this is my current character, level 70, Extreme Druid, Cycle of Fortune. It's a strength stacking, unending storm character. So how does this all work, and how does everything come together? If I give you guys a quick little overview about the build, what I'm trying to do, and so on. This is not going to be a full grown out build guide whatsoever. This is going to come once I figured out everything I wanted. So with being the Druid, your master is the Werebear form, and what I'm specifically tackling on is this one over here. This is the Unending Storm, which says your Rampage has no cooldown, and while using Rampage, you move more slowly but deal more lightning damage. But both of these effects are multiplicative with each other. So the reason for that is I want to have no cooldown, and thanks to the Crackling Assault, we're casting Storm Bolts while we are rampaging, okay? And this is basically the idea about the build. So this is a spell casting kind of like Autobomber build. What I mean with autobombing, since I'm having a big Path of Exile background, it means use one button build, just a movement skill, and clear the entire game pretty much, right? And this is exactly what we have here. So once we go into our Werebear form, we do have our different abilities. Let me quickly get on the sound again. We have our abilities like Rampage, Roar, Maul, and just transfer back into human form and swipe. We don't swipe at all. You can technically use swipe as one of your skills, but this build is, as I said, an Autobomber, which means the only thing that we are using is Rampage. So while we're rampaging, you see these ice spikes flowing around over here, and this is basically targeting the entire screen. This used to be lightning bolts, because I spec'd into the Gathering Storm node here, the Frostbringer, which says Gathering Storms and Storm Bolts base lightning damage is converted to cold damage. So it's no longer lightning strikes, as you saw from the previous footage. It's now those frost spikes coming around over here, right? And I personally don't know perfectly what would be the better case. The thing is, from my point of view, right, my gear absolutely sucks. I have no core items for my build whatsoever. I have no flat lightning damage or any sources. I just randomly picked up stuff like the Frozen Ire, which just gives me a bit of spell cold damage per 5 character power. I have an offhand that is actually based around Ignite and cast Fire Aura every 2 seconds while channeling, and Rampage is a channeling skill. And this is basically what you see here with this like Fire Aura around me, right? This build is absolutely not tailored towards using a Fire Aura or cold damage or anything like that. But the thing is, I haven't found anything better yet, and since I'm not having excessive amounts of increased lightning damage, lightning penetration, so on and so forth, I saw like, why not? Let's try out the cold version of this form of an Autobomber, basically, right? The playstyle itself is pretty much the same. We're rampaging and we're doing abilities that is actually screen wide. It looks a little bit like very close by, but it actually goes through the entire screen. The next thing that we have here is down here, the intimidating cry. After using Rampage, you roar. That means we are actually using the war cry passive skill tree for our roar. That means if I go into werebear form in our rampage, as soon as I stop rampaging, you're gonna see that my roar is going off, right? So we rampage, I release the button, and then you see this rampage going off, right? Or at least the roar. And what that basically does is, besides buffing me and so on and so forth, we do have here the Whirlpool. You now cast Maelstrom when you use Warcry. So basically, we're rampaging, we're killing everything around us, we release the Rampage, we Warcry and generate Whirlpool, like Maelstrom stacks. And what Maelstrom is doing is basically very similar. We are having here the Power of the Storm and Energized, which means more Storm Bolts. This build is centered around Storm Bolt damage, so we're scaling lightning damage, or in this case with the note over here, it would be now cold damage and cold pen and what so on, but I'm not really sure if we're gonna stay with cold damage or lightning damage and which skill points affect the bolts itself, right? So we have Rampage, Storm Bolts, we have Maelstrom Storm Bolts, we have our passive Warcry if we release the button, and then we have like some Stormcrows. They're just like assisting us with damage. They basically, when they attack, they have a chance to give you a buff called Aspect of the Crown, which gives you like flat lightning damage. Then we're also into strength stacking with the Wizened Claws. That means the more strength we get, the more flat damage we're adding to our Thunderbolts. As of right now, it is quite yeah, it works. So we are currently in the lower monolith. So once I've done, once I've unlocked basically the level 90 zones over here, then I can go in the middle here and unlock the empowered monolith, and then we can start grinding for gear. So the first thing I'm going to do today on stream is just finishing off the rest here. I know you can just rush the right side and rush the empowered monolith, but I'm a completionist, so I'm going to just clear every single zone at least once, and then it's like, you know, I also did the entire campaign doing all the side quests and main quests, even though I don't had to do it, right? But as I said, I'm a completionist. I'm just gonna go for the entire clear, even though it's kind of a waste of a time. But if I enjoy doing it, why not? Is basically my decision, right? So I would say we're just gonna load up an Echo, where I'm currently at here in the Blood, Frost, and Death. Basically, you're just continuing your echoes and you gain stability, and once every time you reach one of these, you can do the quests over here. And the third one is always the boss that basically unlocks the next zone and resets your Blood, Frost, and Death zone. So I would say let's just jump into the first Echo. It's level 71, so you see how the playstyle is looking like and what are we working with. As I said, the only thing I'm doing is Rampage. There is a pro and a con over here, right? While rampaging, I cannot control my character. I think this is kind of like sad, because it would be nicer if I don't have to do that, but in the end of the day, it is still... Rampage is like a linear skill. So if I want to change direction, just release the button and then I can change the direction in this case, right? And since there is no cooldown, I can just like go left, right. So it actually kind of looks like as if I could control my character, but I cannot. I'm just releasing the button. It's not that bad, because you want to stop rampaging anyways to trigger your Warcry, and the Warcry triggers Maelstroms, and the Maelstrom is additional damage, as well as even more, in that case, Ice Spikes, that basically are lightning things, but we're gonna see once I get the first items going and farmed up how this one is gonna look like, right? While doing Monolith, it is kind of like a rush meta, basically. As you see, my spikes are actually clearing like almost an entire screen because we do have passive skill trees that are enhancing my storm bolts. And this is actually kind of cool. Even though the storm bolts are triggered from Rampage, they are still scaling with every other node from other abilities. That means, as I told you guys before, the unending storm makes while I'm rampaging that I have these kind of like things proccing, right? But on another skill, on the Gathering Storm, I convert the Storm Bolts, and they are still, while rampaging, converted. So you can use multiple trees for one trigger ability, and this is what it makes it kind of like very cool in that regard, right? But as you see from like the playstyle wise, it is a complete Autobomber. All I'm doing is just rampaging around. Okay, that was a little bit of a server lag. I'm just rampaging and I'm proccing all this stuff, and in the end of the day I can use my maul ability as well, but it's not like really needed whatsoever. And for bosses, as I said, you just like rampage through and all your stuff is just gonna hit the boss and just going to basically kill it. This is a bit of a bad showcase because this boss gets into like a blocking and immunity phase, but here it is that the echo is completed. Now we can basically pour it out, collect our loot, and move forward to the next echo, and so on and so forth. So for today, I plan to get as much stuff going. I want to continue like doing every single monolith here and unlocking the empowered one, and then finally start to focus farm certain key items that I want to have for the build, which I currently have none. This is straight out of campaign with any kind of like stuff that I found. I can show you my stash real quick, where you can see like just random uniques that I picked up, set items, idols, keys, and so on. It's just everything is work in progress. This is basically just like my diary. Where are we right now? As I said, level 70, looking pretty dope. Yeah, it's just like farm, increase your character power, and then once we unlock specific uniques that will change the build even further, then we're gonna see how far we can push with this thing, how tanky we get, how much damage we have, and how much corruption can we push with this kind of character. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.